I'm sitting here. It's 11:30 at night. I've worked a full day in-house as the head of creative for a medium-sized fintech company. I've worked on multiple projects today in Illustrator and in Cinema 4D. And what did I do when I got home? Well, I did what I always do. I created some more. I recently upgraded to the new iPhone 14 and rediscovered a vector app from a while back, and this could probably be an episode all on its own. It's called Assembly, and it happens to be a vector tool that has been optimized for the phone, in my opinion. It's something that is easy to use on the phone, which is not always the case because it's a small screen, right? But my point is, I worked all day. I came home, did dinner, hung out with the family, but I couldn't put down the desire, the need to create. Whether it's doodling or sculpting in 3D or painting a mural on my wall or dreaming up new NFT collections or something fanciful like a Netflix TV series, animated TV series. I'm just always needing to create. It's like there's something within me that I just can't sit still and not be creating or thinking about creating. And I'm wondering, am I alone? Are there others out there? And being a little facetious, I'm sure there are. But seriously, it's crazy. I've had this idea of doing a podcast for several months now. Didn't know exactly what it would be about. I've been working as a creative leader for over 15 years, and I've looked for things on different podcast providers like iTunes and Spotify, and there aren't a whole lot of options. And so here I am, trying to be as real as possible, trying to share some of my insights. And the thing that has jumped out at me today, again, nearing midnight, when tomorrow I need to get up and do it all over again. Get up, go to work. I'm grateful I enjoy it, but that's not going to scratch that itch of creation. I'm not someone who can go to work from 9 to 5, work on projects for others, and then just come home and turn that off and veg in front of the TV all day, or play Fortnite or whatever. That doesn't mean I don't do those things from time to time. But when I'm watching TV, I've got my iPad and I'm doodling, or I'm thinking, how did they do that? Or that's a clever use of VFX, or the way that shot was composed is amazing. And how can I incorporate that into my next piece or the next video that we produce, at work? Am I alone? If this were a radio talk show, I'd be saying, hey, give me a call, 555 create or die. Call me now, right? But it's not. and we don't have such a number. But that is the name of this podcast. Create or die. Create or die. That's what it feels like for me. How about you? Do you have an insatiable desire to be creating? And what do you do to scratch that itch? Think about that. For me, a lot of times it's a blessing or a curse. I can have an idea for maybe a character concept or world, and I'll start to create that, whether that's a sketch on the iPad or a rough Z sketch in ZBrush, or using this app I talked about earlier, Assembly on the iPhone or iPad. And once I've roughed out that character, it's alive, it's breathing, it's in the world. It's out of my head, out of my heart, however you want to phrase it. And then I can take a breath and either feel accomplished, like, yeah, that was a halfway decent illustration, or I can see that character having legs someday and becoming something bigger than just a sketch on a page. But on the flip side, I quickly want to abandon those creations once they've made it on the page or the digital page, on the screen, however you want to phrase it. Then that's good. I'm good. Take it. On to the next thing. And sometimes I don't even know what I want to create. There isn't something specific in my mind. I just need to start doodling, or I have a handful of different techniques to start getting those wheels turning. One of those I've talked about on my Instagram feed. Check it out. It's Animated Funk. So Instagram/AnimatedFunk/ I believe. Check that out. Or how do you do it? It's at Animated Funk on Instagram. Wow, I've lost 50% of you at this point. But yeah, one of those techniques is using symmetry inside of different tools. Photoshop released it recently. ZBrush has had it for a long time. I keep talking about these same apps. But most often I'm using Autodesk Sketchbook Pro on the iPad. Turn on the symmetry, hide it, start doodling, creating shapes, and then just like in the clouds up above, those big cumulus clouds, you might see a frog or a ballerina or whatever. That's what happens to me in that technique. So something to think about. But back to the issue at hand here, that need to constantly be creating. Am I alone here? Is this something that all y'all are experiencing? I'm curious. I think this thing will have comments. Feel free to drop your thoughts in here. Let me know if you'd like to explore this further. Eventually, I plan to start inviting guests onto this podcast when I'm not recording it near midnight on a Tuesday evening. But yeah, this desire to always be creating, to get it out of me. Sometimes I seriously start to envy those who can turn it off. Can come home As soon as they open the door, boom, they've forgotten about work or creating or whatever, and they're able to just help their kids with their homework or do the dishes and not be thinking about, man, I really wish I could be in front of the computer right now. That's not to say I'm not able to do that. There are definitely activities. If you're out on a boat, getting ready for your turn, trying to get up on the wakeboard or whatever, then yeah, I'm not probably not thinking about creating something. And I know I've talked a lot about character design, and maybe that's because at work, as a head of creative, a creative leader, I a lot of times I'm doing stuff in the corporate world, things that I enjoy, but that itch gets scratched, laying out different page designs for a white paper or a website page web page in Figma or whatever, or creating some branding for an upcoming company event. Those things I totally enjoy, but I do that at work. So there's this other part of me. Maybe that's it. As a kid, like many of you probably, if you're a child of the 80s, the most important day of the week was Saturday. Not only because it was a day off school, but Saturday morning cartoons. You got up as early as possible. Didn't have a phone to wake me up, an alarm on the phone. I don't think the parents gave me an alarm clock, so you were just praying that you would wake up on time to hopefully catch all of the cartoons, which I think started at 5 or 6 a.m. on your local TV stations, and that's when the good ones were on, like Dungeons and Dragons. And then another favorite was The Littles, because we didn't have cable. That would have been even better. But anyways, I digress. My love for characters and cartoons initially got me on this path of creating. Finding out that those cartoons that initially I loved, I thought of them as my friends. I wanted to meet them. I wanted to, get to know them, whatever. And then finding out that those were just a series of drawings that you could have an idea for a character. You could create your own friend with a series of drawings and somehow magically put them together with the power of film. Again, magical stuff. And so that's where my love of creating was born, I guess. This is therapeutic. I think we're getting deep here. I'm answering my own questions. I'm talking to myself and my mom and maybe wife, the only two who will probably ever hear this recording. But no, yeah. So that's where it comes from. And, might as well just go into the whole life story here. But, had a dream of becoming a Disney animator, like so many, I'm sure, after seeing Little Mermaid, and then that being followed up with Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and Lion King. I mean, Disney was just unstoppable. And before that, things like Fievel Goes West, American Tail, Land Before Time, the Don Bluth films were all super inspiring. And then, of course, Saturday morning cartoons, which I just kind of elaborated on moments ago. But yeah, so that was the desire. And so I wanted to go to school and study animation, and that's what I did initially. It was a local community college, the only place nearby that hosted, or that had such a program. And a couple years into that process, Disney laid off 600 animators, and I, newly married, was a little frightened by that. Here, this career path that I had chosen was dying right when I finally got my chance. Come on, seriously. And so, thankfully, I was introduced to other forms of animation, what was called multimedia at the time, using tools like Flash, which led to website design in Flash, which at that time was super fun for an animator because every little element was an animation, transitioning from one web page, if you want to call it that in Flash days, to another. The mouse overs were super animated. These Flash websites took a while to load, so there was a loading animation, which probably bothered 99% of the visitors, but as a creative, an animator, I loved watching those things, and I loved creating those things. Long story short, I realized that, hey, I could make a career at this. There's a place for somebody with my skill set in, the design world, and so that was essentially what started it all out. I took my first design job as a web designer, knowing basically Flash and just enough HTML to embed a Flash page or module, whatever they were called back then, in the page, and that was essentially it. Had to fake my way into that, but because of that desire to create and to do this for a living, I was driven to learn HTML and CSS, and thankfully quickly picked that up and excelled at it, and I'm thinking of all of these other full length episodes that could derive from these ramblings that are happening before you at 11:50 p.m. on a Tuesday night. And why am I here? Why am I talking right now at this time? Because I had to create something. And if it's not art, it's a podcast. It's a YouTube channel. It's a business. And that's one of the things I've learned as a creative leader, as a generalist before that, and currently, that I am passionate and can find joy in lots of different creative endeavors. I've even dabbled in programming, believe it or not. Whoop-de-freaking-do, right? But it's some form of creation. And so you know, if you find this interesting, if you suffer from this same desire to create, to get this out of your system with every fiber of your being, then join me on this journey as I kind of take these past 15, 20 years of professional design experience, forays into different techniques, from working in the agency world for most of that time, 12 plus years, working with Fortune 100 companies in Silicon Valley, walking into rooms of professionals that are super intimidating, and they're expecting you to have these brilliant ideas and be able to back those up with some kind of coherent articulation. From where I am now, working in-house at a large or medium size, I guess, we're 800 people, fintech, and creating an in-house studio there. All things that may or may not be of interest to you. If so, join me. Let's have some fun. Leave me some comments. If you would like to contribute, hell, this is new. Come on this ride with me. You know, let's get you on an episode. Let's hop on Zoom. Let's get together for lunch. Let's record something meaningful and see if it sticks. Until next time, create or die.